Imagine this for a second. Your most sensitive personal information, names, addresses, maybe even your social security number just out there, exposed. That's become a chilling reality for millions recently following a major cybersecurity breach. It was confirmed by the U.S. insurance giant Allianz Life. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the source material that reported this whole incident. Yeah, our mission here is really to cut through the noise, try and give you a complete picture. What exactly went down, who's been affected, what kind of sensitive info was compromised, and maybe the most critical part, who's behind it. And what does this all mean for your data security in this, well, very digital world? We'll try to connect the dots between the different reports, make sure you walk away really understanding this threat. It's pretty real. So, okay, let's start right at the beginning. What was the actual flashpoint here? Well, Allianz Life confirmed this pretty significant cybersecurity incident back in late July. Seems the attackers got into a cloud-based customer relationship management database, a CRM database. And to be really specific, this data, this critical stuff, was on Salesforce hosted servers. Now, what's really alarming, I think, is just the sheer scale we might be talking about. Allianz Life said the majority of its 14 lakh, that's 1.4 million customers were affected. But, and here's where it gets a bit murky, an independent data breach tracker. They reported this week that it was 11 lakh, so 1.1 million Allianz Life customers impacted.
That difference is, well, it's pretty stark, isn't it? Allianz says majority of 1.4 million, but the tracker says 1.1 million. That's potentially 300,000 people difference. It's more than just numbers, right? It kind of signals a worrying lack of transparency. Could mean hundreds of thousands are maybe unaware they're at a risk. It fuels that distrust about, what's the actual scope here. Makes you think the initial picture might be, well, understated.
That's a really good point, because looking at just the initial data they revealed, it almost felt like, okay, demographic info, stuff you might piece together anyway. Names, gender, date of birth, emails, phone numbers, home addresses. So what's the real leverage attackers get from just that? Is it mainly for building profiles? Or is there something more immediate?
Exactly. And while it might seem kind of basic on its own, that data, it forms a really crucial foundation. Think highly personalized phishing attacks, maybe bypassing identity verification questions, like the building blocks for more sophisticated scams down the line. But, the whole game changes when you add what Allianz confirmed later on.
Right. And just when you thought it couldn't get much worse, Allianz confirmed something, well, pretty critical in their state filings, Texas and Massachusetts. They actually disclosed that social security numbers were also compromised, and that feels like a major escalation.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
This isn't just, more data. Social security numbers, they're basically the master key for identity theft in the U.S.
Yeah.
Having those exposed, it elevates this breach from just significant to potentially an exceptionally severe crisis for the people affected. We're talking deep financial fraud, stuff that's incredibly hard to fix, affects your credit, loans, maybe even taxes. It's serious.
And the severity just keeps ramping up when we look at who might be behind it. This Allianz breach, it looks like it's part of a wider pattern connected to a hacking group called ShinyHunters. That name might ring a bell for some listeners.
Oh yeah, ShinyHunters, they're pretty well known.
Yeah.
Especially for their social engineering tactics.
Okay.
Very sophisticated. Cybersecurity experts point this out a lot. This group often gets around the usual security tools simply by, well, tricking employees.
Yeah.
Getting them to hand over login details. It's that human vulnerability, they exploit it ruthlessly.
And they've certainly been busy. This isn't exactly their first major outing, is it? ShinyHunters has been linked to, a whole string of high-profile breaches. Big names, too. Google, Cisco, Qantas Airlines, Pandora, Workday. The list goes on. Their track record is extensive.
Yeah, and what's also deeply concerning, I think, is the suspected overlap. Operational overlaps between ShinyHunters and other quite notorious cyber criminal groups, Scattered Spider and the Com. Now, these groups, they have documented histories, not just extortion and hacking, but sometimes actual threats of physical violence. It really paints a picture of, well, an increasingly dangerous and aggressive cybercrime landscape. These groups are evolving.
So with that kind of info potentially out there and these kinds of actors involved, what's the immediate, the pressing danger for the people whose data was stolen?
Well, a major concern right now is this threat of data leak extortion. Reports suggest ShinyHunters is getting ready to launch a data leak site, basically publish the stolen Allianz Life records unless the company pays up. a big extortion demand.
Right. And this strategy, it's straight out of the ransomware playbook. It's what we call double extortion. They don't just encrypt your data or steal it. They also threaten to release it publicly, make it widely available. So if this leak actually happens, millions of Allianz customers could see their really sensitive personal and financial data floating around on underground forums, and that instantly makes them, prime targets for super targeted phishing scams, identity fraud, all sorts of financial crime. It's a nightmare scenario for those individuals.
And Allianz's response so far. Their spokesperson, Brett Weinberg, declined to comment further, said it's due to the ongoing investigation, which is, well, understandable to a point, but cybersecurity experts. They've been quite critical about this lack of transparency. They're pushing Allianz, quite strongly actually, to disclose the full extent of the breach. The argument being, this information is vital. It empowers the affected customers to take protective steps now. Things like credit freezes, fraud monitoring, and just the basic essential step of resetting passwords everywhere.
Yeah, it makes sense they'd be somewhat quiet during an active investigation, but there's a line, right? At what point does ongoing investigation maybe become an excuse, one that could actively harm the people affected by delaying crucial information? Is there any precedent for companies being more proactive with disclosure, even mid-investigation, when customer data like this is hanging in the balance?
That's a really critical tension, absolutely. Investigations are complex, no doubt. But the balance often needs to tip towards public safety, towards consumer protection. Some regulators, consumer advocates too, they're pushing for companies to give out at least initial actionable advice much sooner, even if the full picture isn't clear yet. Just enough so people can start mitigating those immediate risks because, the longer the delay, the more vulnerable people stay. In this incident, it definitely throws a spotlight on a critical sort of underlying vulnerability in how we handle data.
Indeed. It really highlights the risks that come with relying so heavily on third-party cloud platforms, like Salesforce in this case. These platforms hold vast amounts of sensitive corporate and, importantly, consumer data.
Exactly. And the Allianz breach, it's not some isolated event, unfortunately. It really spotlights this troubling and, frankly, accelerating trend. Attackers are increasingly going after this cloud-based customer data. Just in the last 6 months or so, we've seen multiple Fortune 500 companies admitting to breaches tied to Salesforce or similar platforms. Yeah. It's a pretty strong signal that cloud supply chain security is still a significant weak spot across many industries, not just finance.
Wow. So, okay, given all of this, the scale, the methods, the vulnerabilities, what does this all really mean for the future, for our data, how companies protect it?
Well, looking at the bigger picture, the warnings from experts are getting pretty clear and louder. Unless companies really tighten things up, employee access controls, much more rigorous vendor audits, especially for cloud providers, and crucially, real-time breach monitoring. Well, attacks like this are probably going to continue, maybe even get worse. And the Allianz incident specifically, it could very well trigger class action lawsuits. Plus, expect renewed calls for much stronger data protections in insurance and finance, particularly as regulators, both in the US and Europe, keep pushing for stricter cybersecurity standards.
Yeah, this whole deep dive into the Allianz Life breach. It really pulls back the curtain, doesn't it? It shows the chilling sophistication of modern cyber threats, these critical weak points in cloud supply chains we all rely on, and just the frightening evolution of these cybercriminal groups. It's clearly way beyond basic hacking now. It's sophisticated social engineering, it's calculated extortion, and it highlights how interconnected and sometimes fragile our digital lives really are.
Which leads to a really important final thought, maybe for you listening to consider. Given this growing pattern of cloud breaches and the increasing sophistication of groups like ShinyHunters, what does be alert, be safe actually mean for us as individuals today? Especially in an era where your most sensitive data is often held by dozens, maybe hundreds of third-party platforms, far beyond your direct control. How do we strike that balance between the convenience these services offer and the ever-present, constantly evolving risks of our information getting exposed? That's a tough question and one we all need to think about.